The human highlight reel Dominique Wilkins has one of the craziest family stories we've had on this channel. A whole town turned against him when he was just a teen, and he received a lot of death threats actually. That and other things he would go through during his life would be a lot, but he had his family by his side that would get him through it, and we're gonna go over that for you today. I'm Jesse with Basketball Dive, and this is the family of the human highlight reel Dominique Wilkins.
I'm never leaving this city. Let's go ATL. Thank you.
Dominique Jock Wilkins, or Nick as he was popularly called later on, was born on a military base close to Paris, France on January 12, 1960. And while most people have their names given to them by their parents, a nurse actually named him Dominique. His mother Gertrude Baker said that when he was born, a nurse said to her, "Look at little Dominique. He is cute." And she had been confused and asked, "Who?" But she ended up keeping the name for her first child, and she would go on to birth 7 more kids and was said to have raised them practically by herself. So with that said though, let's see who Dominique's father, John Wilkins, really was. Well, for one, John Wilkins was the reason the family had been in Paris in the first place. He was an officer in the United States Air Force and had been posted to serve in France, but when Dominique was 3 years old, John was transferred back to the United States, where the family stayed in the O'Donnell Heights projects in Baltimore, Maryland. But John had one problem. He was a playboy.
My father loved the women, and he ran a lot.
Nevertheless, according to Dominique's mother, he tried to be there for his kids with all the love he had, but when Dominique would turn 12, his parents ended up separating.
Whenever he did see the kids, he showed them a lot of love.
However, he would find his way back to the family, but not in the way you would expect. You see, after Dominique had made it to the NBA, news reached his mother that their father was in Atlanta. And in what would be one of the kindest things Gertrude has ever done, she asked one of her sons, John, to go look for him. He was found in a shelter while battling diabetes, and Gertrude asked that he be brought home to live with them.
I sent my son John to see if he could find him. He found him living at a shelter. And I said, "You gotta bring him here."
He spent the rest of his life living with his family from that point on. He, however, fell into a diabetic coma when Dominique moved to Greece, and just like diabetes had taken the life of Dominique's grandfather, it also took the life of his father, John Wilkins, on December 27, 1995. It was a huge blow for Dominique, but the bad news wasn't over yet, as he also lost his grandmother a week later. Then, around 5 years later in the year 2000, he too was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. But this would not be the only thing he would inherit from his father, as we will come to see soon. But there's no doubt that he was happy to have had the chance to reunite with his father again before he died, and it was all thanks to his very kind mother, Gertrude. Through some really rough financial spots, she raised her children, 8 of them on her own. Needless to say, she did her best, and Dominique basically became the man of the house since he was the oldest sibling. And one of the jobs, crazily enough, was basketball itself, which is where we'll pick up on the story right now. He started to play basketball to earn a couple of dollars, which he would take home to support the family.
He used to go out and play basketball for $20 a game and brought the money home to buy food.
But one day, at 16 years old, he saw his friend die. Then he took his belongings and told his mother he was leaving Baltimore.
I saw a friend of mine, die. And I remember telling my mom, I said, "I'm leaving. I can't live in this city anymore."
First, he went to Washington, North Carolina to stay with his grandmother. And there, his basketball impressed coach Dave Smith. Smith offered him a place to stay if only he would play basketball for his high school, the High Pam Packs, and he agreed. A year later, his mother and his siblings moved down to Washington to join him. Averaging 29 points and 16 rebounds per game, Dominique was the star and a 2-time MVP that led his high school team in Washington to back-to-back championships. So to say that he was loved in his neighborhood would be an understatement. Nevertheless, this love brought him so many benefits. For example, his mother bought a car at a very low price because the dealer knew how famous her son was in town. But things were about to change. All that love was about to turn sour. That car Gertrude purchased got paint bombed by some locals, and they even broke the windows in her house. Why? Well, because everybody in Washington had been expecting Dominique to go to college in North Carolina, precisely NC State University, but he had shocked everyone and had chosen Georgia instead. So the people in his neighborhood basically felt betrayed, and they did everything they could to ruin his life.
F's on my transcript, high school. What? Got in fights, cross burning in my yard, got arrested. Yeah.
His high school transcript was filled with F grades, he was arrested, he got into fights, and his life was even threatened.
I had a box full of death threats.
But that wasn't even all. Some people stopped being friends with him, a cross was burnt outside his family house, while others tried to bribe him with cars, money, and even houses. But Nick, of course, still chose Georgia, and this was partially because of his mother. Can't imagine those displays were very convincing to him either. Nick agreed that he actually considered going to college at home, even signing a letter of intent with NC State, but his mother wanted him to go to Georgia.
Actually, I signed a letter of intent with North Carolina State.
Nevertheless, that didn't mean it wasn't up to him to make that choice for himself. He was quoted as saying, "Yes, my mother wanted me to come here, and yes, I almost went to State. But she didn't tell me what to do. It was my decision." End quote. But why would Gertrude want her son to go to Georgia so bad? Was she offered a fancy job there, or given more money, bigger house? Well, the answer is no. In fact, when her family moved to Atlanta, she worked as a maid in a hotel and at some point was even jobless. But Gertrude must have been convinced by what the coach of the University of Georgia, Hugh Durham, said, quote, "Our basic approach in recruiting Dominique was, sure, you can go to State and be another David Thompson, but why don't you come to Georgia and be the one and only Dominique Wilkins?" End quote. And that was all the convincing the family apparently needed, even though they had to struggle through Nick's college years. But when he finally made it to the NBA through the 1982 NBA draft, he bought his mother a house that cost him $300,000 in a rich neighborhood, which was a lot of money at the time. And then he bought her a nice car for good measure. He'd spent a lot of his money in a short time, but for someone who was earning $500K yearly in that year as a rookie, that was nothing for him. Gertrude was also in charge of his finances. But she won't be for long, as trouble is brewing. It first started with Nick getting injured in '92 after tearing his Achilles tendon. Feeling depressed that his career was likely over, Dominique found the strength to move on during his rehabilitation when he met a former model and student named Nicole Berry at a charity event hosted in Atlanta. So when Nicole arrived in Dominique's life, his relationship with his mother and his siblings was tested. You know what? Scratch that. It was beyond tested. It was a mess, as you'll soon find out. His family didn't really like Nicole because she seemed to be pulling him away from them, as we'll go over next. Gertrude recalls that his son stopped being there for her, which really broke her heart. This led to a huge fight between Gertrude and Nicole would later file a restraining order against Gertrude after accusing her of threatening to kill her. It was all a complete mess. But even with all the tension surrounding the union between Dominique and Nicole, the lovebirds still went ahead to plan a wedding. Gertrude admitted that she was going to miss her son's wedding, but she had changed her mind later on and had decided to go with the man she was dating at the time, the chief of police in Atlanta at the time, whose name we weren't able to dig up. After the marriage, Nicole took full control of Dominique's financial management from Gertrude. This meant that she was also in charge of the amount of money that reached Nick's family. And as you might imagine, she had made sure to cut down on the funds that reached them because she felt that they had been receiving too much prior to her arrival. Gertrude confirmed this when she told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, quote, "She," meaning Nicole, "is writing his checks now. She thinks we're leeching off Dominique," end quote. But after a while, the relationship between Dominique and his mother was restored. Gertrude would even try to help him save his marriage when he and Nicole had issues later on. Dominique's responsibility as a big brother also extended to the welfare of his younger siblings. So aside from trying to act like a father and provide financial support, he was also a caregiver. One of his sisters, Dolly, had epilepsy when she was a child, and she said Dominique took great care of her during her struggle. He was always there for his siblings, and when he hit his first salary, his mom alone didn't enjoy luxuries. One of his sisters, April Wilkins, said there was nothing she wanted to buy that her brother didn't provide. And if she wanted to travel anywhere, Dominique would also make that possible. And even though April's friends wanted to go with her, Dominique would also foot all of the bills. but they also supported their brother in the best way that they could. But aside from his brother Gerald Bernard, nobody really knows what Dominique's other siblings are up to these days. Gerald followed in his brother's footsteps to become an NBA player, but he missed the mark of being a legend like his brother. He came into the NBA through the 47th pick in the '85 draft and played as a shooting guard or small forward for 13 years. Pretty decent role player. He had an impressive total of career 11,736 points after playing for the Knicks, the Cavaliers, the Grizzlies, and the Orlando Magic, where he retired in '99. Gerald's son Dominique Wilkins also played in the NBA for teams like the Supersonics, the Hawks, and the Sixers, while his daughter Jasmine is a top-rated model who was a 4th runner-up in the Miss USA pageant in 2012. But while Gerald Bernard had a respectable NBA career and seemed like he had a pretty good life, he made headlines for the wrong reasons. He's been arrested multiple times for several offenses, some of which he committed even in his late 50s. He has been charged with crimes like theft, battery, aggravated assault, criminal trespassing, and hindrance of the law. Pretty crazy. Anyway, we don't really know what Dominique has to say about all this, even though it's quite obvious that he wouldn't be happy. Nevertheless, let's move on. Dominique took on the role of a father long before he actually became one, but he wasn't so friendly to other people's fathers, especially on the court. So what we mean by that is once Dominique Wilkins dunked on Bob Lanier, another basketball player, and Bob Lanier went home and his daughter kind of gave him some crap for it. So Dominique absolutely embarrassed him, and from that point on, Bob Lanier did not like Dominique Wilkins. That's pretty funny, you know? I mean, like the guy's daughter basically told him, like, you got served, Dad. And that happened, I'm sure, to a lot of players and their children over the years. Dominique dunked on countless NBA players. Dominique Wilkins took after his father when it came to the ladies. That was the second thing he inherited from Pops that I mentioned earlier. According to his friend and teammate Tree Rollins, the ratio of women to men was 17-1 in those days in Atlanta, seemingly anyway, and Wilkins, from every indication, wanted his own 17 women. And his philandry soon began to pay dividends. In 1991, it was reported that he had fathered 2 children with 2 different women. One of them also accused him of sexual assault, but he didn't end up being found guilty. Then he finally met someone serious for the first time. I talked about her before. Remember a certain Nicole Berry? She was 22 years old and in college when Dominique met her. Dominique had said of their first meeting in 1992, quote, I crutched right on over to her. And I'm telling you, I knew she was the one. It was that quick, end quote. 2 weeks later, Dominique proposed to her and she said yes. It's fair to say that Nicole Berry actually helped Dominique overcome his injury. According to Dominique's rehabilitation supervisor, Alan Goldstein, Dominique was highly motivated to come back, and most of the time he did everything we asked. But when he did miss a workout, I called Nicole and she got on his butt, end quote. She was indeed very supportive of her husband and stood by him in court when one of his baby mamas accused him of sexual battery. In fact, it is said that Dominique grew more mature because of Nicole. Nevertheless, a few months after Dominique proposed, they were married. They reportedly stayed together for 13 years and had 4 girls together before calling it quits in 2003. But why this is the case is not exactly known. Truth is, with Dominique's love life, you only get the crumbs. Yes, you might see pictures of him with women, but it's usually just that, pictures. And a lot of times it's just a lot of speculation. Nevertheless, after Nicole Berry, Dominique married a woman named Robin Campbell in 2006. She was the woman that sat with Dominique's children during his Hall of Fame enshrinement speech, if you've ever seen that. She and Dominique share 2 children together, Jacob and Jolie. But their union too ended and Dominique moved on to Sonny. He was married to Sonny for a while, but things didn't work out between them as well, and they have been separated for some time now. Dominique has also moved on with his love life and is currently dating a beautiful woman named Jedidiah Hazelwood. But now it gets really interesting. Now let's see if I can account for all the kids Dominique has fathered. Who better to start this one than one of his sons, Jacob Wilkins, who is turning out to be another human highlight reel like his father. Jacob, who is the second child of Robin and Dominique Wilkins, is gradually turning into a star on the court. According to his father, Jacob started playing basketball when he was just 3 years old. Dominique is very close to his son and said they both share a special bond. He also said that when he made it to the top 75 players in NBA history, Jacob had texted him and was really emotional about the whole thing. telling his dad that he was really proud of him. He is a 6'7" small forward who first played high school basketball at Grayson High in Logan'sville, Georgia, before moving on to Parkview High in Lilburn, also in Georgia. Colleges from Arkansas, Ohio, Georgia, and so on are already lining up to snatch his signature because of the promise he has shown on the court. In July of 2023, he was seen going head-to-head against LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony's sons Bryce and Kian in Las Vegas at the AAU basketball game. While we wait for him to hopefully make it to the NBA and possibly make an impact like his father, let's meet Dominique's other son. Isaiah Wilkins was born on September 23, 1995, but there is a catch here. Dominique's not his biological father. He was given birth to by Robin Campbell and a different man when she was just 16 years old. Isaiah was still a kid when Dominique started dating his mother, and when the two married, the NBA legend became his legal stepfather. Isaiah took the path of basketball as well, but never made it to the NBA. The farthest he went was the NBA Summer League, where he played for the Houston Rockets and then as part of the Hornets training squad. But he had a good college career where he studied African American studies at the University of Virginia and was known for being a good defensive-minded player, winning the ACC Defensive Player of the Year award in 2018. In college, he had also been nicknamed the Glue Guy because it was in his character to bring people together, especially his teammates. But at some point in his life, he suffered severe depression, a struggle that was also shared by his stepsister, who we are going to meet next. JoJo Wilkins is one of 5 daughters that Dominique fathered, but she is also among 2 of Nick's girls that struggle with neurological defects. JoJo has a birth defect known as spina bifida, which has kept her in a wheelchair. But this has not stopped the beautiful JoJo from playing the game that she loves, as we have seen in 2019 when she was draining some shots like the champ that she is. Another champ in the Wilkins home is Danielle, who has autism, but not much is known about her. Just like very little info is out there about her other sisters, Chloe Webster and Alessandra. As for Aisha Randall, another daughter of Dominique, she's well known for being a chef, currently running a catering business. So, because of his family, Dominique Wilkins was not just a human highlight reel on the court. I'm sure you'll now agree he was a human highlight reel off the court as well. A very amazing person and basketball player with a great support system. And you know what, for another video suggestion, why not check out our recent video about another amazing player, Isaiah Thomas from those Bad Boys Pistons squads. Click on the video here.